Emma's first glimpse of the house came just past dusk, when the forest around it melted into shadows and the road behind her disappeared under a thick veil of falling leaves. The house stood at the end of a narrow gravel lane, forgotten by time and untouched by modern life. It wasn't big, 2 stories, gray clapboard, a crooked porch, and windows fogged from the inside. The address had no number, just a faded mailbox with the name, Leroux, carved into its rusted front. She parked the car, engine ticking as it cooled, and stepped out into the chill. The air smelled like moss and wood rot. A crow cried somewhere far off, then silence. It struck her all at once. There were no distant cars, no dogs barking, not even the buzz of power lines. Only the breeze, and the creaking of the old house welcoming her, or warning her. The key she'd received in the mail was old, brass, with ornate swirls etched into the grip. It turned in the lock with a reluctant groan. The door opened slowly, revealing a hollow darkness that felt much larger than it looked from the outside. Emma flicked the light switch. Nothing. She clicked on her phone's flashlight. The beam danced across aged wallpaper curled at the edges, a dusty staircase to the left, and a narrow hallway stretching into shadows. Cobwebs hung in the corners like forgotten thoughts. Her footsteps echoed softly, unnervingly loud for a house that was supposed to be empty. She should have felt something, nostalgia, curiosity, fear, but instead, she felt observed. Not watched. Not hunted. Just noticed. As if the house had become aware of her presence. Her bedroom was upstairs, the only one not padlocked shut. The bed had been made, oddly enough. Crisp white sheets, a heavy quilt, and a single pillow, untouched. A lamp sat on the nightstand, unplugged. Beside it, a journal. It wasn't hers. Its cover was cracked leather. The first page read, in delicate cursive. "If you're reading this, then I'm gone. Be quiet after dark. It listens." Emma sat on the edge of the bed, the house settling around her like a sigh. She told herself the message was a joke, some elaborate family prank, or an artifact from the home's previous, possibly eccentric, owner. But that night, something woke her. A soft, deliberate tap, scraped beneath the floorboards. She held her breath, ears straining. It came again. Tap, scrape. A sound like fingernails dragging slowly across wood, just under her bed. She told herself it was the pipes. Or maybe an animal. But she didn't move. Didn't dare. Outside, the wind had stopped entirely. Inside, something shifted beneath her. Emma didn't sleep for the rest of the night. She lay stiff beneath the quilt, barely breathing. Her eyes stared at the cracked ceiling above her, but all her attention was focused downward, on the thing beneath the floor. The sound had stopped. But the silence that followed felt worse. It was the kind of silence that pressed against your ears. The kind you felt more than heard. By dawn, her limbs were sore from not moving. When the first gray light leaked through the curtains, she finally sat up. Her feet hovered above the floorboards a moment too long before she forced herself to stand. She checked under the bed. Nothing. She knocked on the floorboards. Hollow. But no trapdoor, no crawlspace. Just wood, nailed shut decades ago. In the daylight, the house looked less threatening. The wallpaper peeled in long strips down the hall. Dust floated lazily in golden light from the windows. She brewed coffee on a portable camping stove she'd brought, since the kitchen stove didn't work. The cupboards held only ancient canned goods, labels faded or peeling, some rusted through. The journal on her nightstand called to her. Its leather cover was rough, and the binding fragile. She flipped past the first page to the next. It doesn't come every night. Only when it wants attention. Don't answer it. Don't knock back. And never open the door beneath the stairs. Her brow furrowed. Door beneath the stairs? She went to the hallway. The staircase to the second floor curved upward along the left wall, but now, she noticed it. A small wooden door set underneath, no taller than her waist. Almost hidden behind an old coat rack. She crouched. The handle was round iron, cold to the touch. She hesitated. Then tugged. Locked. That was enough for her. She left it alone. Later that afternoon, she tried to distract herself, unpacking, sweeping, making lists of repairs. But her mind wandered back to the door. And the journal. And the scratching. That night, she lit a candle in her room. There were no working outlets. Her phone battery was low. She bundled beneath the quilt again, telling herself she'd imagined the sound. Then, at 2:17 a.m., she checked the clock precisely. The sound returned. Tap. Tap. Scrape. Emma sat bolt upright. This time, it wasn't beneath the floorboards. It was at the wall. Just behind her headboard. As though something, inside the wall, was trying to get through. Emma stared at the wall in the dim candlelight, heart racing. Her breath caught in her throat as the sound came again. Tap. A pause. Tap, scrape. Right behind the headboard. Slow and deliberate, like someone dragging their nails along the inside of the wall. Not fast. Not frantic. Just, steady. Patient. She slid out of bed and moved the candle closer to the wall. Shadows danced wildly as the flame flickered. She leaned close, placing her ear near the peeling wallpaper. For a moment, nothing. Then, faintly, a voice. It wasn't speaking words. It was mouthing them. Lips against wood. The barest hint of syllables pushing through cracks. A dry whisper, impossibly close. Emma. She recoiled, heart leaping to her throat. She hadn't told anyone she'd arrived. Her phone had no signal. There was no one else. The voice had come from inside the wall. She backed away from the wall slowly, grabbing the journal off the nightstand. She flipped through more pages, her hands trembling. It learns your name if you stay long enough. Don't speak to it. Don't listen. It lies. If it whispers, cover your ears. She slammed the book shut. The whispering had stopped, but her name now echoed in her skull. It hadn't sounded angry. Just, curious. As if the house was testing her, learning her shape by the sound of her breathing. Emma didn't sleep that night. She sat upright, candle burning low, flinching at every groan of the wood. By morning, she had a plan. She would investigate. Just once. Just enough to feel sane. She found a crowbar in the garage, a rusted thing nearly fused with age, and pried at the paneling in her room, starting near the baseboard where the whisper had emerged. The boards resisted. She peeled back a strip. And behind the wall was nothing but thick, damp blackness. No insulation. No wires. No framing. Just open space. As if the wall was hollow. And deeper than it should be. She stuck her flashlight into the gap and clicked it on. For a moment, she saw nothing. Dust motes. Old cobwebs. Then something moved. Something pale. She dropped the flashlight. From within the darkness came a low rasping breath, and the creak of something shifting inside the wall. Emma's hands trembled as she crouched beside the exposed gap in the wall. The blackness beyond swallowed the weak beam of her flashlight like a hungry mouth. The breath she'd heard lingered in her mind, wet, rasping, like a creature struggling to breathe after centuries of silence. "Hello?" she whispered, her voice cracking. "Is someone there?" Only silence answered. Her fingers brushed against the rough wood framing the opening, searching for any sign of what could live inside a hollow wall. But there was nothing, no wiring, no pipes, no insulation, just an impossible, empty void. Her heart hammered as a faint scratching began again, deeper than before, as if coming from far beyond the gap she had created. The sound echoed hollowly, then faded. Emma swallowed hard, pulling the wall panel back into place. She nailed it shut with trembling hands, the sharp click of the hammer loud in the small room. She stepped back, staring at the patched wall like it might breathe. Her mind raced. Why was this wall hollow? What had been hidden here? She flipped open the journal once more. The house is alive. Not with spirits, but with hunger. It waits in the walls, in the cracks, beneath the floorboards. It grows stronger with your fear. Emma shivered, the candlelight flickering wildly as a cold draft swept through the room. The air smelled of damp earth and something old, like decay, or worse, something dead and waiting. She heard a whisper again, this time clearer. "Don't look." The candle guttered and went out. Darkness flooded the room. Emma's breath caught. She fumbled for her phone, but the battery was dead. A scraping noise began again, slow, dragging, deliberate, right behind her. The scraping noise grew louder, closer, like something scratching patiently at the thin wall behind Emma. She froze, heart pounding, every instinct screaming to run. But the weight of the house, its silent watching, held her still. Slowly, she backed away from the wall and turned towards the hallway. The small door beneath the stairs called to her. It felt alive, pulsing like a heartbeat beneath her skin. Her fingers trembled as she approached it. The door was old, its wood swollen and cracked. The iron handle was cold and rough. She took a deep breath and turned it. It creaked open. Inside was a narrow, pitch-black stairway descending into the earth. A damp, musty smell rose from the darkness, like soil and old secrets. Emma's flashlight was dead, but she gripped the doorframe and stepped down, one cautious foot in front of the other. The wooden stairs groaned under her weight, disappearing beneath the blackness. Halfway down, her hand brushed against something cold and smooth on the wall. A faint glow pulsed beneath the surface. She pressed closer and saw faint symbols carved deep into the stone, twisted runes that seemed to writhe in the flickering light of her fading candle. A whisper echoed up from the depths below. "Come, closer." Emma's heart hammered, but she kept descending. The air grew colder, thicker, pressing on her lungs. Suddenly, a heavy door loomed ahead, old oak, bound in rusted iron. She reached out, fingers trembling, and pushed. It swung open silently into a cavernous chamber. Emma stepped into the chamber, her breath swirling in the cold, damp air. The faint glow she'd seen on the stairs pulsed stronger here, revealing walls carved from ancient stone, slick with moisture. Shadows danced, thrown by the faint light of phosphorescent moss clinging to cracks. The air was thick with a scent she couldn't place, something earthy, metallic, and faintly sweet, like rotting fruit. The chamber stretched wide and tall, far bigger than the narrow stairway suggested. The ceiling arched high above, lost in darkness. At the center lay a stone altar, cracked and stained. On it rested a small wooden box, covered in dust and strange symbols, like those on the stairs. Emma's hands trembled as she reached for the box. Her fingers brushed the lid, and a sudden chill shot through her spine. The box creaked open on its own. Inside was a collection of brittle, yellowed papers, notes, drawings, and strange diagrams. They detailed rituals, warnings, and an entity bound beneath the house, something ancient and hungry. Her eyes darted to the last page, where a single line was written in blood-red ink. "Feed it fear, or it will feed on you." A soft scraping noise sounded again from the shadows near the altar. Emma spun around, heart racing. From the darkness emerged a figure, pale, gaunt, with hollow eyes that reflected the dim light. It moved slowly, its fingers tapping rhythmically against the stone floor. "Why have you come, it whispered, voice like dry leaves. Emma swallowed hard, trapped between terror and curiosity. I don't know, she said, voice barely audible. The figure smiled, a hollow, endless smile, and the walls seemed to pulse with a terrible life. Emma's breath caught as the pale figure approached. The room seemed to grow colder, the air heavier, as if the very stone was absorbing her fear. Her fingers clenched into fists, knuckles white. "Why have you come?" the entity repeated, voice a rasp like dry wine through dead branches. Emma swallowed, trying to steady her voice. "I inherited the house. I wanted to know the truth." The figure's hollow eyes gleamed, as if pleased. "Truth is a dangerous thing here. This house remembers. It hungers." Emma's heart pounded in her chest, and she took a cautious step back. "What do you want from me?" The entity's thin lips curled into a grim smile. "Fear. It feeds on your fear. It grows stronger with every heartbeat you waste trembling." A slow tapping began again, echoing from somewhere beneath the altar, soft but insistent. Emma's gaze dropped to the stone floor, where faint cracks began to glow with an eerie red light. The entity gestured to the altar. "There is a choice. Feed the hunger, or become the feast." Emma's mind raced, panic rising. But beneath her fear was a spark of defiance. "No," she said firmly. "I won't be part of this." The figure's smile faded, replaced by a cold, calculating expression. "Very well," it hissed. "But beware, the house never forgets. It will find ways to feed, even if you refuse." Suddenly, the chamber trembled. The glowing cracks in the floor widened, revealing a dark abyss beneath. A cold wind rushed upward, carrying voices. Whispers, screams, laughter, all tangled together in a terrible symphony. Emma stepped back toward the stairs, heart hammering. The entity's hollow eyes followed her every move. The house had begun its game. Emma fled up the stone steps, the echoes of the entity's voice chasing her like a chill wind. The chamber door slammed shut behind her with a thunderous boom, shaking the ancient wood. She raced up the narrow stairwell, but the darkness seemed to thicken around her, swallowing the weak light from her phone's flickering screen. At the top, the small door beneath the stairs refused to budge. Emma pounded her fists against it, panic rising. "Open! Please," she screamed. The scratching started again, slow, deliberate, now coming from everywhere in the house. The walls, the floorboards, even the ceiling. Emma's mind reeled as the house seemed to twist and warp. The hallway stretched and warped, doors appeared where none had been before, and the familiar creaks turned into tortured moans. She realized with horror that the house was no longer a structure, it was a labyrinth, a maze designed to trap her. "Feed me," a voice whispered from the shadows. "Feed me fear." Emma gritted her teeth and ran down the hall, trying every door. Each one opened to darkness, cold air, or unsettling glimpses of the chamber below, always the altar, always the entity watching. Her breaths came in ragged gasps. Her mind threatened to break beneath the weight of unseen eyes and whispered voices. Then, a cold hand brushed her shoulder. She spun around, heart pounding, but no one was there. Only the house, waiting. Emma stumbled through the twisting corridors, her heart pounding like a trapped animal's. She reached a dimly lit hall where a tall, ornate mirror stood against the wall. Its surface was clouded with age, the frame twisted with curling black vines carved from wood. Drawn by some irresistible pull, Emma stepped closer and stared into the glass. Her reflection stared back, pale, wide-eyed, trembling. But then the image shifted. Her eyes in the mirror darkened, and a slow, cruel smile spread across her face. The reflection's lips moved, whispering words she didn't understand. Emma's breath caught. The mirror rippled like water, and a voice hissed from within. "Feed me your fear, or be lost forever." She tried to look away, but the reflection reached out with a ghostly hand. Panicking, Emma slammed her fist against the glass. It shattered, shards raining like cold rain to the floor, but the reflection vanished. The hallway behind the mirror stretched on endlessly now, doors fading into blackness. Emma realized the house was showing her herself, the part it wanted to consume, her fear, her doubt, her loneliness. A cold breeze brushed past her, carrying a whisper. "You belong here now." She ran, away from the mirror, deeper into the house's grasp. Emma's feet pounded against warped floorboards as the house closed in around her. The walls seemed to pulse, breathing faint whispers that slithered into her mind. "Fear feeds us, fear binds you." The voices grew louder, indistinguishable murmurs overlapping in a chilling harmony. She pressed her hands to her ears, but the whispers burrowed deeper. Her vision blurred. Shapes flickered in the corners, faces twisted in torment, eyes pleading for release. Suddenly, the floor beneath her cracked, sending her tumbling into darkness. She landed hard in a cold, damp tunnel. The smell of earth and rot filled her lungs. Ahead, faint red glows marked the path deeper underground. The whispering followed, now a chorus urging her forward. A choice stretched before her: confront the unknown or surrender to the house's insatiable hunger. Summoning every ounce of courage, Emma rose and stepped into the abyss. Emma's footsteps echoed in the narrow tunnel, the red glow pulsing faintly like a heartbeat beneath the stone. The air was thick and heavy, each breath a struggle as the darkness pressed in from all sides. Ahead, she could just make out shapes, twisted roots crawling across the walls, dripping with something cold and wet. The whispers followed her, low and insistent, like a chorus of forgotten voices. "Feed the hunger, feed the fear." She tightened her grip on the journal, the pages crinkling beneath her fingers. The warning seemed clearer now, etched not just in ink but in the very walls of the house. Suddenly, the tunnel opened into a cavern, larger than any chamber above. The red glow emanated from cracks in the jagged ceiling, casting eerie shadows on the damp earth. In the center stood a great stone pedestal, cracked and stained, with ancient symbols glowing faintly. Emma's heart hammered as she approached. The air vibrated with power, something old and terrible waiting beneath the house, feeding on fear and sorrow. A voice whispered from the darkness. "You came willingly." Emma swallowed hard. "What do you want from me?" she asked, voice trembling. "To be free," the voice replied, cold and empty. "To feast again." Emma stepped back, realizing the true horror wasn't the house, it was what it kept locked beneath it. Emma's heart pounded as the voice echoed through the cavern, growing louder, more insistent. "To release me," it whispered, "you must feed the fear. You must offer your own terror in blood and shadow." She scanned the altar, eyes catching faint scratches, symbols of binding, old and worn, but still potent. The journal's pages rattled in her trembling hands. To hold the darkness, one must make a sacrifice. Emma knew what the voice demanded. A ritual. A surrender. In that moment, she understood, the house wasn't just alive, it was a predator. And she was its prey. Emma's hands shook as she tore a small strip of cloth from her sleeve, biting her lip against the sting of fear and pain. The ritual demanded a token, a sign, a drop of blood to feed the ancient hunger beneath. She pressed her fingertip against the altar's cold stone, letting the tiny bead of blood fall. The cavern shuddered. The red glow flared, illuminating jagged symbols etched deep into the walls, pulsing like a heartbeat. Whispers crescendoed into guttural voices, voices of the long-forgotten, crying, begging, laughing in torment. From the shadows emerged fleeting shapes, indistinct figures twisted by hunger and sorrow. Emma's breath hitched. She realized the house was feeding, not just on her fear, but on the souls it had trapped before her. A sudden cold grip clutched her ankle. She stumbled, catching herself just in time. "Feed me more," the voice hissed, closer now, a breath on her neck. Emma knew this was only the beginning. Emma's breath was ragged as she struggled to free her ankle from the icy grip. The cavern pulsed with an unnatural life, the voices swelling into a desperate chorus. Ghostly forms drifted through the shadows, figures twisted in eternal torment. Their hollow eyes locked onto her, pleading silently for release or revenge, she couldn't tell which. She gripped the journal tighter, hoping its words might guide her through the darkness. The hunger devours, but the forgotten remain. They are bound to the house, cursed to feed its eternal thirst. One spirit reached out, translucent fingers brushing her cheek. A cold wave washed through her, memories not her own flooding her mind, faces of those trapped, screams echoing through the halls of time. Emma gasped, tears blurring her vision. The house was a prison, and she was the newest prisoner. The spirits faded into the shadows as Emma staggered away from the altar, her heart pounding like a drumbeat of dread. The cavern grew colder, darker, and the air thickened until every breath felt like inhaling stone. Her flashlight flickered weakly, the battery nearly dead. The voice whispered again, softer now, but no less menacing. "Feed the fear, let it grow." Emma stumbled toward the stairs, the walls closing in with every step. The house itself seemed to pulse beneath her feet, a living creature writhing in hunger. Her mind screamed for escape, but the path twisted and changed, the stairs leading back up now stretched impossibly far, the ceiling rising and falling like a living lung. She realized the house didn't want her to leave. It wanted to trap her in this nightmare, to consume her terror slowly, until nothing remained. Her hands gripped the journal tightly as the whispers turned to laughter, cold, cruel, and endless. Emma's legs ached as she climbed the twisting staircase, the whispers chasing her like shadows. The walls around her shimmered, distorting until she found herself in the long hallway with the shattered mirror. Her eyes darted to the broken glass scattered on the floor. But something was wrong, her reflection wasn't shattered. It stared back whole, smiling with cold, empty eyes. The mirror image's lips moved, forming words she couldn't hear. Emma took a step back, but the reflection reached out through the glass shards, cold fingers brushing her wrist. A chill spread through her, and suddenly she was falling through the mirror's depths, into darkness. She landed hard on cold stone, surrounded by dozens of mirrors, each reflecting a twisted version of herself. A voice hissed from the darkness. "Choose your reflection, or be lost forever." Emma's pulse thundered in her ears as she faced the endless mirrors, each one shimmering with a distorted reflection of herself. Some smiled cruelly, others wept tears of blood, and a few were empty voids where no face existed at all. The voice echoed again, cold and insistent. "Choose your reflection, or become the shadow." She hesitated, then reached toward one mirror, the reflection of herself, calm and resolute, eyes steady despite the darkness. As her fingers brushed the glass, the mirror rippled like liquid. Suddenly, the chamber spun, and Emma was plunged into cold darkness. When she opened her eyes, she was alone, or so she thought. A faint whisper caressed her ear. "You have chosen, but the house will always hunger." Behind her, footsteps echoed softly, endless, patient, and watching. Emma's heart pounded as she turned, eyes straining in the suffocating dark. The footsteps followed, slow and deliberate, never closing the distance, always just behind. Ahead, the darkness began to peel away, revealing a long, narrow corridor lined with doors. Dozens of them, each more ancient and worn than the last. Faint whispers leaked from the cracks around the frames. She approached the nearest door and hesitated. The journal in her hand whispered a warning. Each door leads to a fear, a memory, a trap. Some may hold answers. Most hold only nightmares. With a deep breath, Emma grasped the cold iron handle and pushed it open. Inside was a room bathed in a sickly yellow light, filled with shadows that flickered like flames. The walls pulsed and twisted, and at the center lay a small child, weeping softly. Emma's breath caught. The child looked up, eyes wide with terror and familiar sorrow. "Mom?" the child whispered. Emma's knees buckled. The child was her, but younger. Lost. Afraid. The door slammed shut behind her. Emma's chest tightened as the child's tear-streaked face mirrored her own forgotten fears. The room seemed to pulse with the child's sobs, walls bending in rhythm with her trembling breaths. "Mom?" The child whispered again, voice fragile like shattered glass. Emma knelt, reaching out, but the child recoiled, eyes shadowed with terror. "Don't leave me," she begged. Memories flooded Emma, long nights alone, the crushing weight of loneliness, the fear she'd buried deep beneath years of silence. The house had trapped this fragment of herself, a lost echo feeding its hunger. A sudden cold gust blew through the room, and the walls rippled, revealing cracks that whispered, "Feed me your sorrow." Emma's resolve hardened. "I won't let you consume me," she said, voice steady. The child's sobs slowed, and the room softened, but the door remained locked. Outside, whispers grew louder, calling her back. Emma knew the house wasn't done with her yet. Emma pressed her palm against the cold wooden door, her breath fogging the dim room. The lock rattled but didn't budge. Panic threatened to rise, but she swallowed it down, steadying herself. The child looked up, eyes wide and pleading. "Please, don't leave me." Emma's heart broke. "I'm not leaving you," she whispered. "We'll get out together." She scanned the room for anything to help. On the floor lay a small, rusty key, half buried in dust. She grasped it, hope sparking. Moving toward the door, she slid the key into the lock. It turned with a grinding noise, the door creaking open. Light spilled into the room, not warm, but sharp, cold, like a blade. Beyond the threshold, the hallway twisted impossibly, stretching endlessly. The whispers followed, urgent and hungry. Emma took a deep breath and stepped through, clutching the child's small hand in hers. The hallway stretched before Emma and the child like a black river flowing into infinity. Faint lights flickered overhead, casting long shadows that writhed like living things on the walls. The child squeezed Emma's hand tightly, eyes wide and searching. "Where are we?" the child asked, voice trembling. Emma swallowed her own fear. "I don't know. But we have to keep moving." As they walked, whispers rose again, a tide of voices that seemed to come from the walls themselves, murmuring secrets, threats, and forgotten names. The floor beneath them creaked and shifted, sending shivers up Emma's spine. At the far end of the hallway, a heavy wooden door loomed. Its surface was carved with twisted symbols that seemed to pulse in the dim light. Emma stepped forward, heart pounding. The child tugged at her sleeve. "Will this door lead us out?" Emma didn't answer. She reached out and grasped the iron handle. The house held its breath. Emma's fingers closed around the cold iron handle, the carved symbols beneath her touch seeming to pulse with an ancient heartbeat. The whispers crescendoed into a chaotic symphony, voices begging, warning, laughing in cruel delight. With a deep breath, she pulled the door open. A blinding light flooded the hallway, and Emma squinted as the world shifted. She found herself in a vast room filled with floating images, memories suspended in air like fragile glass spheres. Each one shimmered, showing moments from her life, childhood birthdays, quiet afternoons, lost friends, forgotten promises. The child beside her gasped, reaching for one sphere that showed them laughing together in a sunlit field. But as Emma stepped closer, the spheres began to crack and darken, revealing twisted versions, moments warped by fear, regret, and pain. The house was showing her not only her past but the darkness she carried within. A voice whispered close to her ear. "To escape, you must face the shadows you hide." Emma clenched her jaw. The journey wasn't over. Emma reached out, touching one of the floating spheres. It shimmered, showing a happy moment with friends, laughter echoing in the soft light. But as her fingers grazed the surface, the sphere cracked, fractures spiderwebbing across the image. Suddenly, the cheerful laughter warped into screams. Faces twisted into masks of fear and sorrow. The light dimmed, casting the room into shadow. The child clung to Emma, eyes wide with terror. "The house feeds on pain," Emma whispered, heart aching. "On all the darkness we hide." More spheres cracked, memories unraveling into nightmares. Faces she loved twisted into grotesque shapes. Moments she cherished turned to ash. A cold wind swept through the room, carrying a voice, soft, cruel. "Only by facing the darkness can you be free." Emma steeled herself. She had to confront the shadows, no matter how deep or terrifying. Emma took a shaky breath and stepped deeper into the room of memories. The shards of broken spheres crunched beneath her feet, each fragment whispering echoes of her darkest fears. The child held her hand tightly, trembling. "Mom, I'm scared," the child whispered. Emma nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. "Me too. But we have to be brave." Ahead, a massive sphere floated, glowing brighter than the rest. Inside, she saw herself, alone in a cold, empty house, tears streaming down her face. The house whispered from the shadows, "Face it, or be consumed." Summoning all her courage, Emma reached out and touched the glowing sphere. In an instant, she was pulled into the memory. She was there, alone, small, frightened. The weight of loneliness crushed her chest. But as she stood there, she whispered to herself, "I am stronger than this. I am not alone." The memory shimmered and began to brighten. Back in the room, the sphere pulsed and then dissolved into light. The child smiled, hope flickering in her eyes. Emma knew this was only the beginning of her fight. As the last light from the shattered sphere faded, the house seemed to grow restless. The walls trembled, the floorboards groaned, and an icy wind swept through the memory chamber, snuffing out the soft glow that had filled the room. Emma's heartbeat thundered in her ears. The whispers returned. This time angry, harsh, like 1,000 voices screaming in fury. "You will not escape," they spat. "You belong to us." The child clung to Emma's side, shivering. From the shadows, dark tendrils seeped forward, twisting and curling like smoke but solid, reaching for her. Emma raised her voice, defiant. "I belong to no one." The tendrils recoiled, but the house was far from defeated. Emma's legs burned as she sprinted through the collapsing chamber, the sound of breaking memories crashing behind her like thunder. The child's small hand squeezed hers tightly, a lifeline in the chaos. Ahead, the door they had entered through shimmered faintly, a promise of escape or another trap. Almost there, Emma whispered, pushing her fear aside. The tendrils writhed closer, tendrils of shadow reaching like claws, scraping at their heels. She stumbled but caught herself, gritting her teeth. With a final burst of strength, Emma lunged through the door, slamming it shut behind them. For a heartbeat, silence. Then the door shook violently, the house's rage pounding against it like a wild beast. Emma and the child leaned against the door, gasping for breath. They had escaped the memory chamber, but the house was far from finished with them. Outside the door, the hallway stretched endlessly, but the light that had once flickered faintly now dimmed to a ghostly glow. Emma's hands trembled as she reached into her pocket, pulling out the journal, the only guide she had. The whispers were quieter now, almost contemplative. But the cold remained, biting through her clothes and seeping into her bones. She glanced down at the child, who clung to her side, eyes heavy with exhaustion but still burning with fragile hope. Emma whispered, "We'll find a way out. We have to." The walls around them began to pulse softly, like the heartbeat of a living thing. From the shadows, a new voice emerged, older, deeper, filled with ancient menace. "You cannot leave." Emma's grip tightened on the journal. The house's hunger was relentless. But so was her will to survive. Emma led the child down the dim hallway, the faint glow of dying light guiding their path. Ahead, the familiar staircase beckoned, but as they approached, Emma's heart sank. The steps were broken, jagged gaps yawning between rotting wood and shattered banisters. The stairwell stretched impossibly, bending and twisting as if mocking her. She hesitated, weighing the danger against the unknown darkness below. The child looked up at her, eyes wide with fear. "We have to keep going," Emma whispered, stepping carefully onto the first fragile step. Each creak echoed through the silence, and with every step, the house seemed to tremble beneath them. The void beneath the broken staircase yawned like a hungry maw. Emma gripped the child's hand tightly and descended into the unknown. The staircase ended abruptly at the edge of a vast pit swallowed by darkness. Emma peered down, the blackness stretching endlessly beneath her feet, swallowing any trace of light. She could hear faint whispers rising from the depths, a chorus of desperate voices, pleading and laughing all at once. The child whimpered softly, clutching Emma's hand tighter. "I don't know what's down there," Emma admitted, "but we don't have another choice." With a deep breath, she stepped over the edge, feeling herself fall, the world spinning into endless night. Suddenly, she landed on cold, damp ground, the floor slick with moss and ancient rot. Ahead, dim blue light shimmered, revealing a labyrinthine cavern stretching into the shadows. The house's hunger was no longer just above, it thrived in the darkness below. Emma steeled herself for the next part of the nightmare. Emma rose slowly, brushing dirt and moss from her clothes. The cavern was vast, its ceilings lost in darkness far above, the walls slick with moisture and strange glowing fungi that cast eerie, flickering light. The whispers followed her, low and sinister, slipping through the cracks in the stone. Ahead, narrow passages twisted like serpents, disappearing into the shadows. The air was thick with damp earth and decay. The child shivered beside her, eyes darting nervously. "We have to find a way out," Emma whispered, gripping the journal tightly. "But the house, it's all around us." The walls pulsed faintly, as if breathing. From the shadows emerged pale shapes, ghostly remnants of those who had never escaped. Their hollow eyes locked onto Emma, pleading silently. The labyrinth was alive, and it wanted to trap them forever. Emma's footsteps echoed through the labyrinth, each step stirring whispers that slithered around her like invisible snakes. The glowing fungi flickered, casting strange shadows that seemed to watch her. Suddenly, she froze. Ahead, a pair of eyes gleamed from the darkness, cold, unblinking, and full of hunger. More eyes appeared, scattered through the gloom, dozens of them, watching silently. The spirits she'd seen before now emerged fully, twisted, anguished forms tethered to the house's will. The child gasped, clutching Emma's hand. Emma whispered, "We have to keep moving." The eyes blinked in unison, then vanished as the shadows swallowed them. The labyrinth shifted beneath their feet, passages twisting and reforming, trapping them deeper in the house's grasp. Emma's legs ached, her breath coming in ragged gasps as she stumbled through the ever-shifting labyrinth. The whispers had grown louder, more insistent, clawing at her mind with relentless torment. The child's small hand trembled in hers. "We can't stay here," Emma whispered fiercely. "We have to find a way out." But the house seemed to sense her defiance. The walls pulsed and groaned, and the air thickened with cold dread. Suddenly, a sharp, piercing scream erupted from the shadows, a sound so raw, so filled with pain that Emma doubled over, clutching her head. From the darkness, a figure emerged, her own reflection, twisted and broken, eyes black pits of despair. "Give in," it hissed. "There's no escape." Emma shook her head, fighting back tears. "I won't be consumed." The house trembled, fury rippling through its ancient bones. Emma pushed forward, the twisted reflections' taunts fading behind her. The labyrinth seemed endless, but she clung to hope like a lifeline. Ahead, a faint light glimmered, a soft, pulsing glow like a heartbeat. She followed it, descending deeper into the darkness. The tunnel opened into a vast chamber at the heart of the house. Here, the walls were alive with writhing shadows, and the air tasted of ancient sorrow. In the center pulsed a great, black crystal, throbbing with a malevolent energy. It seemed to drink in the whispers, growing stronger with every breath. Emma realized this was the source, the heart of the house's hunger. The child tugged at her sleeve, eyes wide. "Is this the end?" Emma shook her head. "No. This is where it all begins." She stepped forward, determined to face the darkness and break the curse, no matter the cost. Emma approached the black crystal, its pulsing darkness seeming to reach into her soul. The whispers rose to a fever pitch, begging, demanding. A cold voice echoed through the chamber, ancient and unforgiving. "Offer your fear, your sorrow, and I shall grant you freedom." Emma's mind raced. To feed the hunger would doom her, but to refuse could mean eternal imprisonment. She closed her eyes, remembering the child's trembling hand, the fragments of her own courage scattered through. As the shadows surged toward Emma, a warmth blossomed within her chest, a small, steady light that grew stronger with each heartbeat. She focused on it, pushing back against the consuming darkness. The black crystal's pulse faltered, its glow dimming as the light expanded, filling the chamber with a brilliant radiance. The monstrous shadows shrieked, retreating into the cracks and crevices of the stone walls. Emma grasped the child's hand firmly. "We're not afraid," she whispered. The house trembled, the ancient hunger struggling against the flood of courage and hope. With a final surge, the light burst outward, shattering the crystal into 1,000 shimmering fragments. Silence fell. The labyrinth began to dissolve, the walls melting away into soft morning light. Emma blinked, standing once more in the familiar warmth of her home, the nightmare finally broken. Emma stood in the quiet house, sunlight filtering softly through the curtains. The oppressive weight had lifted. The darkness that had haunted every corner was gone, replaced by a fragile peace. The child beside her smiled, eyes bright with hope. But Emma knew the scars ran deep. The house's hunger had been fed, but only because she had confronted her own fears. She walked through each room, touching walls that no longer whispered, breathing in air that no longer chilled. Outside, birds sang as the world moved on, unaware of the battle fought within these walls. Yet in the stillness, Emma felt a lingering presence, not malevolent, but watchful. A reminder that some darkness never truly fades. She closed the door behind her, stepping into the light of a new day. Days passed in a comforting routine, but Emma couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Shadows lingered just beyond her vision, fleeting and silent. One evening, as the sun dipped low, she noticed a faint figure standing at the edge of the garden, barely more than a silhouette. Heart racing, she approached, but the figure vanished like mist. That night, the journal lay open on the kitchen table, pages rustling as if caught in an unseen breeze. A new entry appeared, written in the same blood-red ink. The house remembers. It watches. It waits. Emma realized the nightmare wasn't over. The house had changed, but it was still alive. She steeled herself for whatever came next, knowing that courage wasn't the absence of fear, but the strength to face it. That night, Emma lay awake, listening to the house breathe softly around her. The shadows had returned, curling at the edges of the rooms, whispering old secrets she thought she'd buried. A sudden chill brushed her skin. The candle flickered and went out. In the darkness, a voice whispered, soft, coaxing, impossibly close. "Emma." She sat up, heart pounding, searching the room. The voice came again, this time from the hallway, carried on a cold breeze. "Remember me." A door creaked open slowly. Emma's breath caught. The house was waking again. Emma rose from the bed, feet cold against the wooden floor. The house was alive with whispers, shadows swirling in the corners, dancing just beyond the reach of her flashlight. She moved cautiously, heart hammering, drawn toward the half-open door at the end of the hall. Beyond it, a faint glow pulsed, a soft, eerie light like the heart of the crystal she had shattered. The whispers grew louder, urgent, pleading. "Come back, join us." Emma's fingers trembled as she reached for the doorframe, but a sudden chill gripped her, as if icy hands clasped her wrist. A vision flashed, a memory of the house swallowing her, drowning her in darkness. She shook her head, fighting back tears. Not this time. Steeling herself, Emma stepped into the glowing room. The room glowed with a soft, unnatural light, casting long shadows that flickered and twisted. In the center stood a faint silhouette. The house's final guardian, a shadowy figure cloaked in swirling darkness. Its eyes gleamed with ancient hunger as it spoke in a voice like cracking ice. "You have defied me twice, Emma. But the darkness is eternal." Emma's hands clenched into fists. "I'm not afraid anymore." The shadow lunged, tendrils of darkness whipping through the air. Emma felt the cold bite of despair, but a steady warmth bloomed in her heart. She focused on the light within, the courage, the hope that had carried her this far. With a cry, she unleashed that light, a brilliant blaze that engulfed the shadow. It screamed, a sound of shattering night, before dissolving into nothingness. The house trembled one last time, then fell silent. Emma stood alone, victorious. Dawn broke softly, spilling golden light across the quiet house. Emma stepped outside, the cool morning air filling her lungs with a sense of freedom she hadn't felt in months. The garden bloomed anew, the shadows lifted like a heavy veil. She looked back once, the house standing silent, its hunger quelled but never forgotten. The child beside her smiled brightly, hope shining in those young eyes. Emma whispered, "We're free." But deep within, she knew the battle had changed her, scarred and stronger, wary but unbroken. As the sun climbed higher, she took a step forward, into the promise of a new day. Weeks passed, and life slowly returned to a fragile normal. Yet, in the quiet moments, Emma felt the house's presence, a lingering echo beneath her skin. Sometimes, at dusk, the shadows lengthened unnaturally, twisting like fingers reaching out to touch her. At night, soft whispers drifted through the walls, a reminder that the darkness, though defeated, was never truly gone. Emma held the journal close, its pages now blank but heavy with meaning. She knew that the house had left a mark on her soul, a bond forged in fear and courage. And somewhere, deep in the silence, the house waited. Patient, watching, ready to awaken once more. One evening, as twilight bled into night, Emma found a new entry written on the last page of the journal, ink dark and fresh, dripping like blood. "Beware the quiet. The hunger never sleeps. It waits for the cracks to return." A cold shiver ran down her spine. She glanced around the silent house, shadows creeping just beyond the lamplight's reach. The child tugged at her sleeve, eyes wide. "Mom, what's happening?" Emma forced a smile, swallowing the knot of fear. "Nothing. Just a story." But deep inside, she knew the house was far from finished. Its hunger was eternal. And so was her fight. The house was eerily silent that night, no whispers, no footsteps, no shadows lurking in the corners. The quiet pressed down on Emma like a suffocating blanket. She lay awake, senses straining for the slightest sound. The child beside her slept peacefully, unaware of the looming threat. Suddenly, the silence shattered with a deafening crack. Glass breaking somewhere deep within the walls. Emma bolted upright, heart hammering. From the darkness, a chilling voice echoed, low and venomous. "The hunger stirs." She grabbed the journal, flipping frantically through its pages, searching for answers. Outside, the wind howled, a mournful cry that carried the promise of returning nightmares. Emma knew the fight was far from over. Emma's hands trembled as she clutched the journal, its pages fluttering like trapped wings. The house groaned around her, walls bending and creaking, shadows stretching longer, darker. From every corner, eyes gleamed, hungry, relentless, watching. The whispers returned, louder, more insistent. "Feed us, fear, pain." The child cried out, clutching Emma's arm. "We have to leave," Emma said, voice firm despite the rising terror. But the house was alive, its hunger awakening once more, closing in like a storm. Emma's mind raced, searching for a way to break the cycle, to banish the darkness forever. She knew the path ahead would be darker than ever before. Emma ran through the twisting halls, the shadows clawing at her heels like ravenous beasts. The house seemed to breathe around her, walls pulsing with a dark, living heartbeat. The whispers twisted into screams, voices of the lost and damned, filling the air with madness. The child's small hand gripped hers tightly, both of them desperate to escape the nightmare. Ahead, a door appeared, a glowing portal promising salvation or doom. Emma hesitated, then stepped through. The world spun, darkness swallowing them whole. When they opened their eyes, they found themselves trapped once more, in an endless night, where fear was the only light. In the endless night, Emma and the child stumbled through shadows that whispered ancient curses. The ground beneath them was cold and unyielding, stretching into an abyss that swallowed every step. A distant echo called out, a voice both familiar and terrifying. "Emma." She turned, heart pounding, to see a figure shrouded in darkness, its eyes burning with sorrow and rage. "You cannot run," it said. "You are part of the house now." Emma's resolve flared. "No," she whispered. "I choose to fight." With the child by her side, she stepped forward into the darkness, ready to face whatever horrors awaited. Emma stepped forward, the figure dissolving into swirling shadows as the first rays of dawn pierced the endless night. The darkness trembled and began to recede, retreating like a tide pulled back by the sun. The whispers softened, fading into silence. The walls of the nightmare melted away, revealing a soft, golden light bathing the world. The child smiled, eyes wide with hope. Emma felt a weight lift from her chest, the house's hunger finally quelled. She turned toward the horizon, the promise of a new beginning stretching before her. The nightmare was over. But the memory would linger, a reminder of the strength found in facing the darkest fears.